Hey guys, it's Julian, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make industrial techno cakes like this. And this. And this. And yeah, so to go along with this video, I've actually just dropped a sample pack. What this is it's got 20 cakes in it. It's just $10. You get 20 cakes, and you also get this really cool industrial rumble rack. So as you guys know, the way a lot of this stuff works is the pretty straightforward sort of rumble cake. But then there's a little bit more to it, which I'm going to be explaining to you in this video. And if you want the rack and you want these 20 cakes, as you just heard, they're really solid and they really work well with that sort of like Perc, I hate models style of industrial techno. All of that is in the description. Definitely go check that out. And yeah, so the secret here, it's not really much of a secret. It's like I said, it's a pretty straightforward sort of rumble cake. If you've seen my other techno videos, you recognize this processing chain. I've got a kick, and then it's just going into a saturator, and then we have an audio effect rack with a dry chain. And then we have one with a wet chain. And so the way this works is just the same as any other rumble cake. We've got a reverb or a delay. You can do either, like a delay will also sound cool. That gives you more of like some percussion in between the notes. Or you could do reverb, and then you put those into a distortion, sort of like maybe an amp or something like this, where it gives you that really big, powerful sound like that. And then the key here is after that, you do a bit of multiband distortion. So if I turn off this audio effect rack here, you can hear this is the kick. You can hear it's kind of there, but it doesn't really have that definition in the low end. You know, it's really not clean like that. So this is where this audio effect rack comes in. You can hear this is what you really need to take it that last little step. It seems kind of like a subtle difference, but you can really hear the difference there. And how much more tight and focused this sound is. And yeah, a lot of times when people ask me how to do these cakes, they have a hard time because they think, well, you just make a rumble and just distort it and just go crazy with it. And that's not really going to work because, as you can hear, even just this, without any extra distortion on top of it, is already too much. Like, this doesn't work on its own. So the secret here is, like I said, going to be the multiband distortion. What you have to do is get the rumble going like this, and then you distort it after that to take it that last little bit. So the way I'm doing this here is I have an audio effect rack with 3 chains. We have the highs. I'll solo this so you can hear it. The highs, and then the mids, and then the lows. And so you can pretty much see the reason why we're doing this. As you can see, like with the mid-range, we want a lot more distortion than we want on the low end. You know, if you distort the low end that much, I'll even show you what it would sound like. It's not going to work. You're going to get this big, flabby mess. The key here is kind of like getting a controlled, but still big and distorted sound. So like, yeah, we got the mids, you know, being distorted quite a bit, and then even like the highs, like even if you distorted the highs that much, it's not going to work that well. You can hear with this, we've got a little bit of this bass frequency turned up as well. It kind of gives it that like crunchier sound. And we're also scooping out some kind of nasty stuff in the high end. So you can see really, like I said, you know, by doing it this way, you're able to get a lot more control over the sound and just make it exactly what you want. The problem is, again, I think people just think that you want to just make a rumble and just distort it, you know, with no holds barred, just go crazy, and that's going to get the sound. And again, that's not going to work. You're just going to get a big, messy mess. But with this, you know, it's a lot more controlled, and this is what I think a lot of these producers are doing. And you can hear, like, what makes it clean is, like, we don't even have any distortion on the low end. I've just got an EQ8 on there, just cutting out a bit at 100 hertz and then boosting the low end. So yeah, and then the other thing that's going on there is I've got this side chain, so this is really important as well to, I'll close this so you can see, to side chain the rumble, because if I turn this off, again, it just becomes a big mess. It's like too much rumble. It's not really controlled. But if you sidechain the rumble to the dry kick, you can see I've just got the sidechain here set to this channel, and then we've got this pre-effects there. So it's pre-effects meaning before all of this stuff, it's just sidechaining it to this kick coming out of the sampler. That way you get enough equal space for the punch as you do the rumble. And it actually allows you to optimize it too, because like if I turn off the compression, we can actually kind of get this to work. But you can hear that's not really as full as this sounds. Like this is a lot more full because we're able to clear out the space for everything to fit. So yeah, and you can play around with the settings a bit here too. Like I like to play around with the reverb, this high cut. You can get a lot of different sounds this way. When I was making this pack, this is pretty much how I was making them. Just playing around with different settings on these effects, like the amp and the reverb and the delay in the cases where I use that. We can even change maybe the size on the reverb. You can play with the decay time. You can hear like there's so much that can be done to get an interesting sound once you have this set up. We can also play around with delay a little bit, you know, like we got the 16th note delay. We can do 8th notes. We can do dotted 8th notes, which will give you like this kind of. That's almost like the 16th notes, but it's more like kind of like that. We can even unsync it too. Some of the kicks in here, that was how I made them like something like that. Sounds pretty cool. We can filter it a bit. There's a lot that can be done to get interesting sounds and to do different things this way. But mainly in this video, I just want to give you some inspiration and kind of set you on the right path as well. Because I think, again, a lot of times it can be too easy to hear these tracks and think the way that they're making them is just by distorting everything, you know, blowing it way out, and that's just how you get the sound. And that just simply isn't true. Like, again, that's not really going to sound that professional. But if you do it this way, in a controlled way, you can get a big blown out sound and still keep it sounding professional. And then the last thing I'll talk to you about with the industrial kick here is going to be processing after the rumble. So if I turn off this processing after the rumble, let me switch that back to the reverb. You can hear it's really not that hard hitting or powerful. Like even if I turn this up louder, it still just doesn't really sound that tight. You know, the low end isn't that powerful. It's just kind of weak. So this is where processing of everything comes in. You need to put a little bit of processing on the kick and the rumble at the same time, because what it's going to do is it's going to glue them together, and it's going to beef both of them up together in a way that's really going to make it sound like one. This is how, like when you hear these kicks, and you may be having a hard time getting them to sound really together on your own, this is how the pros are doing it, and this is how people do it in these tracks. And I'll show you, like, with this drum bus, for example. Here's without it. And with it. So, like, right away, you know, you don't even have to just use drum bus. What this drum bus is doing right now is basically this hard setting is a distortion with a limiter. So this will be the same thing as if you got a saturator and a limiter, and maybe just, like, turn the saturator up like this. Turn the limiter up a bit. You know, you can get similar effects with other things, but you need to do something like this to really glue it all together and make it all sound like one. And then the other thing here is the EQ. Like, if I turn this off, you can hear that's making a big difference as well. Because without the EQ, again, it's all about controlling the sound. It's going to get really messy. You're just going to have this crazy flabby thing that's flying all over the place. Like, this has the impact to it. It's just not really very polished. But when you turn the EQ on, it allows you to focus the sound. So again, you're creating the sound that sort of has the illusion of being very blown out and big. But obviously, you know, it's a lot of things in here to polish it and clean it up and make it work. Like cutting out the low mid-range, boosting the low end, and boosting the mids, boosting the highs a little. And this also glues everything together. You know, even though this isn't like saturation and a limiter where like literally it's pushing the sounds together sonically, it does change the two sounds, the rumble and the punch, in a very like cohesive way because they're both getting the same filter. This filter is very sharp. It's like a very specific filter. So when you put that on two things at once, even if it was a kick and a hi-hat, a kick and a snare, whatever it may be, it's going to make those two things sound closer together and make them sound more cohesive. So that's pretty much it for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed. As always, make sure to like this video as well as subscribe, and let me know what you think of this video in the comments. Like I said in the beginning of the video, you can get this sample pack in the description, so if you just want a bunch of really solid kicks, you can get them again. Some pretty solid stuff in there, so definitely go check that out if you're looking for kicks. And you can also get this rumble rack in there, which has the special distortion in it that will make your kicks really hit hard. And yeah, so thank you so much, everyone, and I will see you tomorrow with another video.